Okay, welcome to episode 2 of the Techcast. Slight change in the name from the Average Linux User podcast, and I'm here again with Zero. How you doing, mate?
I'm all right, mate. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. You been up to much?
Um, no, not really.
No.
You know my ongoing struggles with getting Spyro reignited to work, but
Yeah. We'll talk about that in a moment, actually. Okay, so I thought we could start with openSUSE Sleep 15.2, as you are the resident Gecko man.
yeah, I'm the resident lizard ambassador.
Would you
So yeah, Leap 15.2 came out last Thursday, I think it was. To much muted applause, I think is how
Yeah,
I would
it's
describe it.
quite an underrated thing, isn't it? I haven't seen much sort of fanfare for it, like at all.
Yeah. So what do we have in this release? We got kernel 5.3
Yeah.
with backported updates, of which I do not know the details. Main things in this release seem to be related to AI and machine learning being available.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. There doesn't seem to be too much really going on majorly. I can't see.
No, so the main things seem to be Kubernetes is now an official package in the release.
Yeah.
Which to me that seems like they're a little bit late to the party because I'm sure that like even from like 1804 Ubuntu was doing the whole like Kubernetes thing.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. TensorFlow is now available, and there's a couple of other things. Um, it does surprise me though that so they ended up delaying the OpenSUSE 15.2 release. I'm not sure what the reasoning behind that was because it was originally scheduled for sort of like April, I think it was,
Really?
and they ended up pushing it back. But I'm not sure on what the details were. But it surprises me that they didn't take that opportunity to bump the kernel to 5.4.
Yeah, there's a few things that I thought could have been a bit more recent. Mainly the desktop packages, though. I think GNOME 3.34 seems a bit old to me at the moment.
Yeah, because it's like you know Ubuntu's got an LTS version that came out in April, and that managed to ship
3.36.
3.36
Yeah, I think.
and kernel 5.4 as well.
I'm not sure if I remember mentioning it in a Discord about the memory leak that was still present in 3.34, but I think you said it might have been sorted for this release or something.
Yeah, I think I think the fix got backported to Leap's version, but I would have to like go into the mailing lists and check.
Have you actually checked out 15.2 on a computer, or have you just not
Yeah,
really?
so I had it from like beta 2, I think it was. And then I tried the release candidate and Gold Master as well.
Hmm.
I don't think it feels pretty solid actually. It
It's really
actually
solid, yeah.
strangely it seems to boot faster on my machine than Tumbleweed does.
Why do you think that?
I'm not sure, but when I've like it seems to be the Plymouth screen is
Right.
up for longer. It does more revolutions on the swirly whirly thing that you get than on Leap, and I'm not really sure why. Because I would have thought that some of the newer packages would have made things a little bit speedier. It's kind of like it's not significant, like it's not like 10, 15 seconds or whatever, but it's like there's a couple of extra seconds or so where I'm kind of like, oh, okay, and it's repeatable as well because I had it on my laptop.
I'm gonna have to test that out after this podcast actually, because I'm still writing like my notes for the review that I'm doing of it.
Yeah,
But overall, I've really enjoyed my time with it. To be fair, there's a few little quirks here and there that are a bit weird, but other than that, it's been
yeah.
fine.
There's quirks with every distro though, aren't there?
Yeah, I mean, there's little things though that I think shouldn't have made it into a final release. I remember mentioning the flatpak thing. I think that needs fixing.
Yeah, the Flatpak repo thing. That is, I think that was an issue on Tumbleweed for a little bit as well, but I don't know if they patched it or not in
It,
there.
it's a very minor thing, but I think if you're not quite sure what's going on there, that might lead to a bit of confusion. That's not that necessary really, because it's a very easy
Yeah,
fix.
Yeah, it's a really easy fix. It's just kind of like, why did this why did this get put out? Because they had um a week from the Gold Master to release where they could have patched it, because they patched the uh, Intel microcode bug
Right.
that was there, that was preventing certain Intel CPUs from booting because of I forget what the latest exploit's called.
Yeah, I don't know. For those
I don't
unaware
know.
of what we're talking about, the if you try and add the FlatHub repo, it will return an error. But basically, all I did to fix it, I don't know if this is the universal way of doing things or not. I just deleted the Flatpak folder and re-added it, and it was fine.
Yeah, so it comes up with the error. It's like /var/lib/flatpak
There you go.
slash repo,
Yeah.
something like that. And the fix is just to remove that folder and then try to add whatever Flatpak repo you're using.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
it goes ahead.
it's an easy enough fix. I think the whole desktop setups I think are quite interesting as well. So I tried out the XFCE package,
Oh yeah.
and it has its So you mentioned about going into the details of things, which I didn't actually know was even a thing. That if you go into the installer and the software selection bit, you can click details and then sort of granularly choose like more control over
Yeah.
the packages, which is amazing, I think.
Yeah.
But it has its own sort of package called like openSUSE XFCE desktop skin or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And I think
I think most of them do.
I think it's quite a nice setup. To be fair, it doesn't stray too far away from sort of standard XFCE. It just looks a bit nicer. Obviously, when you've got a base XFCE install, it can look a bit grim.
Yeah. Especially on high DPI monitors, it's not quite there yet.
But no, I think I've really enjoyed it. I think when I do my final review, I'm gonna try and condense it into about, I don't know, like 10 to 15 minutes of video,
Hmm.
and then move on from there. I think as a sort of regular, what is the release pattern for Leap?
So Leap, I think, is you get a new quote unquote version every sort of 12 to 18 months, usually, to coincide with SUSE Linux Enterprise
Right.
service packs. But then I don't know what the overall lifespan of one like whole number release is, if that
How?
makes sense. Kind of like Leap 15.
Yeah. How long ago was
Uh,
15.1 released?
oh, 15.1, goodness me, I'd have to Google it.
Oh, okay, don't worry about it.
I think it was a while ago.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, so from my understanding, each SUSE Enterprise release is branched from openSUSE Factory at some point,
Right.
and that goes towards making the next major version, and then each like sort of point release is just like a service pack, basically.
And why do you think that openSUSE doesn't really get that much attention compared to the other sort of mainstream distros? Because it's been going now for over 10 years. I was doing a little sort of research on it.
Yeah,
I think the initial
yeah,
release was like 2005 or something.
yeah. It's been going a really long time. I mean, I can't really speak for how openSUSE thinks. They're not getting as much exposure. I don't know if it's just because Ubuntu kind of dominates the landscape a little bit.
Do you think it could be
Um,
like a branding issue though?
I don't think so, because I actually quite like sort of openSUSE's branding. Although I know that there have been discussions about the fact that some of the kind of first impression when you go onto their website and they have Tumbleweed and Leap is kind of a bit like off-putting to
Right.
certain users, because it's kind of like they want people to use Tumbleweed a little bit more, but it's kind of like the way it's marketed is like, ooh, it's for makers and hobbyists and all this stuff, and it's kind of like, well, actually, like normal users could probably get away with it too. There's nothing stopping people that are used to kind of Arch and other rolling distros
To use
using
Tumbleweed.
Tumbleweed. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I saw a lot of comments on their subreddit the other day along the lines of people who want a pretty stable rolling release distro are best off with Tumbleweed, and I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I think it does feel like just a stable distro all in all. Obviously, both packages, but more so Leap.
Hmm.
I've not
Yeah,
spent too much time with Tumbleweed to really have a sort of a concrete opinion on it, though. To be honest.
yeah. I think that's the issue. I need to stick with it for a lot longer. It'd be like, okay, like write out like a lot more updates and see how it goes.
So, have you sort of traditionally spent more time just using Leap?
I kind of, with my time with openSUSE, I was kind of hopping between the two. Probably more so with Tumbleweed because when I first came to openSUSE, 15.1 was at that point still quite ancient as
Yeah,
well.
it was. I was reading just some old notes about that as well, and that felt. I don't know when it was released, but it seems like it would have felt stale even when it was released. To be fair.
Yeah, so I think maybe 18 months is a little bit long, but then it's kind of like, yeah, it's still, more regular than some other releases. So I don't know.
Well, I think it's fine for most users. To be fair, I think I've been using it as a daily driver, and it's not, stopped me from doing anything that I'd usually do on any other distro. So
Hmm.
I've enjoyed it. Right, so we've also got a new release. Well, a bit earlier in the sort of cycle is Linux Mint 20. Did you try out that at all?
I did boot to the live ISO for the Cinnamon edition,
Yeah.
and I thought it was quite nice actually. Like, it felt pretty, pretty solid. Still had that kind of mint feel about it. Like,
So I've seen.
it's kind of hard to explain, but it just sort of like every time I go to mint, it always, just it feels exactly the same as when I first tried it. It always has that like nice kind of welcoming feeling.
I think I saw some people like complaining that they didn't feel like there was enough in it as like a newer version, but I'm not sure what they really expected. It's got the latest 20.04
Yeah,
base, and I actually really enjoyed it. I wouldn't use it personally because there's
yeah.
just things I want to do that you probably couldn't do as easily on Linux Mint. But I think for people who are
Mhm.
looking just for something user friendly that you can just set up and use, it's perfect.
Yeah. I
And
mean, Cinnamon now has fractional scaling. What more do people want?
yeah, it does. Yeah, there you go. Well, I think that was the big sort of takeaway from this release was the fractional scaling. To be fair,
Yeah, yeah. Let's
but
get the release notes up. Let's see what was new. Okay, so Snap was disabled.
new Cinnamon
So
as well, 4.6.
yeah,
I think. I think it was 4.6.
yeah.
Or am
That's
I
new.
just pulling that
Okay.
number out of thin air?
Oh, they had Warpinator as well.
Warpinate
Warpinator's
is really
a new
good.
thing.
I've installed it on
Is
Archer
it?
as well. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So it's in
I
that.
haven't actually tried it because I use SyncThing for all of my like file sharing across the network, but I'm sure that I'd probably try it at some point.
It's probably one of the most user friendly ways of just sharing a file on the local network. To be fair,
Hmm.
it's just a simple case of dragging and dropping into the sort of window, and then it will send it over. You get one little prompt in your notification area to accept it on the sort of computer that you're sending it to, and that's it. It's easy as anything.
Oh, oh, that's pretty cool.
It is. I'd use it quite a lot. As I said, you can get it on the AUR repository at the moment as well.
Okay.
Yeah, it
Hmm.
was Cinnamon 4.6, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's in the release notes. What's new?
So I think the biggest takeaway again is the newer version of Cinnamon. Is Warpinator, I think, definitely deserves a mention there. The
Hmm.
latest Ubuntu base, and of course the removal of Snap, which we've already covered that, and of
Yeah,
fractional scaling.
yeah. That's
Who
pretty. Yeah, that pretty much covers it, I think.
who would you recommend Linux Mint to?
So this is interesting, right? Because I have a friend who, she's had two laptops for a while. She had her new one because her old one was getting to be about 4 or 5 years old and couldn't keep up
No.
with her typing notes and stuff like that at uni. So I said to her, "Well, hey, like your old laptop, you should totally chuck Linux on it and have a bit of a party
Did
with
she
it,
take
and
much convincing?
No, actually, she was quite interested because I was sending her like screenshots of
Pretty
like
desktops.
sort of my desktops, pretty desktops, yeah. And I was like, oh, hey, like you should give this a go. And she was like, oh, I will. And it turns out that her old laptop is so kind of generic that everything just works out of the box on it.
Yeah,
So it's kind of the ideal play about sort of laptop.
I think that's one of the
And
well
I
factors of Linux actually. When sort of an ex Windows user uses it, and it's the fact that you don't have to like install files and drivers straight away and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I said to her because it was around the time this week that I was playing about with Ubuntu as well, and I said to her, okay, I said I've got two options for you in terms of distros because I decided not to chuck her into openSUSE because I thought that might be a bit overwhelming. I said, like, do you want the kind of more Windowsy looking thing, or do you want the new radical shiny thing that is from the other perspective? And she said, oh, I think I want to try the new shiny thing. So that was her installing Ubuntu rather than Mint.
Oh, is she still on Ubuntu now?
Yeah, so she's still on Ubuntu now.
Is she enjoying it?
But she told me, yeah, she is enjoying it actually. She told me the other day that she was like installing GNOME tweaks and was going to be like installing shell extensions and all this stuff. And I was like, okay, maybe at this point you should probably go and look at like a different desktop environment because you're going to hit a wall eventually. But
Yeah, well, that's the thing with GNOME, isn't it? You can only go as far as the extensions will really allow you. Get her on
but
KDE.
I do. Yeah. I don't think she's tried KDE yet, but that'll be a work in progress.
I am surprised you haven't got her on openSUSE, to be fair.
Are you?
Yeah, I would have thought even with the feeling of her perhaps being overwhelmed, you would have guided her through it and been sort of.
Well, that was the debate I had with myself. I thought, do I kind of put her towards Leap and kind of be more able to give her support because I'm running basically the same thing and I can tell her like what buttons look like and things like that, or do I give her something where she, I can't necessarily tell her, but then I could spin up a VM anyway, so it's like trivial, and kind of like give her something that she's more able to go and Google and find software for and things like that. And I kind of thought, actually, that's probably a little bit of a better shout for her than openSUSE.
Well, that's one of the main sort of benefits again of sort of Ubuntu and things like that is that everyone's going to have already have encountered the problem that you're having at the moment. So if you go on Google or whatever, you're going to find someone that's already had that problem and overcome it. Whereas I don't know how is openSUSE quite like that. I'm not too sure.
It's kind of sometimes it's a little bit difficult to Google problems on openSUSE.
Do they have like a wiki or something?
Yeah, so they've got their wiki, but that's actually very good at explaining kind of the functionality sometimes and how things work and what the intended way to do things is.
Yeah.
But sort of a couple of months ago, I was looking at trying to install Boink for doing distributed computing.
Mm-hmm.
And I just could not find a way to make it so that it would automatically sign in and sort itself out and do all of this stuff. And I tried and tried and tried, and I just could not find anything. And eventually, the thing that worked for me was I had to find the Fedora instructions.
Ah, okay. Yeah, it makes sense.
That then told me how to do the thing that I was trying to do, and it works absolutely beautifully. But it's like when you're trying to Google like Boink openSUSE auto login, like just nothing comes up, right? And then but if you put in like Boink Fedora, like it brings you to their Wikipedia page that's like installing Boink on Fedora, and I'm like, okay.
I'm not sure how I feel about the name Boink.
It's an acronym.
What does it stand for?
These things always are.
Yeah, we love a good acronym, don't we?
Berkeley Open something. I'll find out for you
Okay, yeah, I'm on the edge of my
because it's
seat.
gonna bug it. It's gonna it's gonna annoy me if I don't find it.
Yeah.
Berkeley Open Infrastructure for Network Computing. There you go.
See, I was going to say institute or institution or something. I don't know why that was popping into my head. Oh my god! Talking about acronyms, I've been saying YAST wrong as well. While I was doing my review notes that I'm working on a review, I was like YAST, yet another software tool, and then I was like, oh, I've been saying it wrong the whole time. It's yet another setup tool.
I mean, I don't think anybody would slap you on the wrist for that. I definitely wouldn't.
I think software tool sounds better.
Well, yeah, because it's got software management in it, right? So it's like...
No one's corrected me on it yet, so maybe people just don't actually know or care.
Yeah, maybe. Because it's kind of like openSUSE don't really care how you pronounce openSUSE either, but
that's another thing.
SUSE Linux definitely do.
That's another thing I've been struggling with as well. So in the first video, I was like openSUSE. 2 seconds later, openSUSE, and I keep jumping between the two because I had a discussion with myself before I filmed it. Because I'd just say openSUSE, but I was like, right, I'm going to call it, because people moan at me actually for saying like mate instead of mate.
Wow.
And I just feel so pretentious if I was like, yeah, well, I'm using mate at the moment. I know that's how it's meant to be pronounced, but I wonder why people care so much.
I didn't actually know that it was pronounced mate
until
like this year,
right?
When
Okay.
I googled it, and I was always calling it like Ubuntu Mate Edition or whatever.
I just say mate. I think a lot of British Linux YouTubers, there's not a lot, but everyone that I've seen talk about it again just say mate. I think it's because it's like embedded in our like lexicon, the word mate, that you just say mate.
Yeah, I think OTB is the only one that I've seen that doesn't instinctually do that, but I feel like he's just too professional to...
yeah, maybe. So what I want to talk about next, actually, we've got in the notes here, is the decline of the Linux diversity. So you sent me this article on datamation.com.
Yeah, that's from 2015. It's quite an old article.
Oh wow, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah.
So the thing that I've taken away from that, because they mentioned the sort of top 10 in the distro watch page rankings.
Yeah, well, obviously that's changed in 5 years since then.
No, but even so, it's very, like, the point still stands. It's not very diverse at all, right? So if you take the first 10, number 1 is MX Linux, which is Debian based. Number 3 is Mint, which is, by extension is Debian based, if you want to sort of argue semantics or whatever.
Yeah.
Obviously it's Ubuntu based, but yeah. And then it goes Ubuntu, and then you've got Debian, and then you've got Elementary, and then you have a couple spaces, then you've got Zorin and Pop OS. So it kind of is dominated, the top 10 is dominated by Ubuntu/Debian based distributions. And the only ones that are sort of not on it, you've got Manjaro, Solus. I'm quite surprised to see Solus in the top 10 actually.
Yeah.
I really like Solus though.
Yeah. I think I tried it on my laptop at some point, but it was a little bit slow, I thought, compared to...
When did you try it?
About 3 or so months ago.
Really?
Yeah. And I don't know what it was that was slow. I don't know if it was just because it had loads of updates to be doing or what, but I tried it anyway, and I was like, like, this doesn't feel as zoomy as what I was using before, so I quickly got rid of it.
So what do you make of the article, in particular the decline of the number of distros that are listed? I haven't checked. While you're talking, I'm going to check how many distros are actually listed now since that article was written.
Yeah. So I think there is this bit of a saying, at least that I've noticed recently, that there's kind of this there's a new distro, it's yet another Ubuntu.
Yeah.
And I think that some of the reasoning for that is just because Ubuntu does so well at ending up being a lot of people's distro kind of choice, whether they're newcomers or not. And a lot of people go, oh, I want to I think I touched on this in the last episode about people wanting to learn more about Linux, and they kind of go, "Oh, I'm going to make my own distro because I think
Mm,
it's a good way to do that." And then obviously because they're used to Ubuntu, they go, "Hey, I'll just base it on Ubuntu because why not?"
yeah, I think that that does lead to the lack of diversity as well, not even just the
Mm.
decline of things. And I guess the reason why things are declining is because people are half-heartedly, if you like, spinning up these new distros with the intention, or maybe their intentions are really good when they first do it,
Hmm.
but life kind of gets in the way. And being the single person, like one person, one entity, trying to do all of this stuff is just not. It's not feasible.
No, no, certainly. And you showed me that article that Alan Pope had written. He did the whole website for it,
Yeah, make
advocating make a Linux app rather than
that's the one.
make another distro. And I love this paragraph that he has at the
It
bottom. He
it might
says,
be the same parrot.
too, yeah, he's like, too often technical enthusiasts fall into the trap of creating more Linux distributions. We do not need more Linux distributions. Please stop making Linux distributions.
I mean, he's got a point. To be fair, the
Mhm.
the app ecosystem does need to get a bit better. But so I read the Reddit thread that this was because I wasn't aware of this website's existence. For those that are listening,
Mhm.
it's makealinux.app, which is written by Alan Pope, who works for Canonical on the Snapcrafters team.
Yeah, he
Um,
works. He's like community man slash
yeah, that's
senior
the one.
developer advocate slash yeah.
So I think he makes a really good sort of case here for the argument he's trying to make. But I think when I was reading the Reddit thread, because he linked it on his Twitter, that's how I sort of knew of it, the Reddit thread's
Mhm.
existence. People were complaining that one of the suggestions of sort of things to use was Electron.
Yeah,
Like I don't know, it's not like he's just listed Electron though. He's listed quite a few things here.
yeah. He even listed Ubuntu Touch, bless him.
He did, yeah. It's on here right now, yeah.
Yeah, because he has what he's got GNOME, obviously, KDE frameworks, obviously. He had Elementary OS, which I thought was interesting.
Would you know what made me laugh the most as well, like through sort of watching people's responses to this website? Someone went, haha, well, at least you haven't put snap first, haha. Well, I don't know what his exact word was like, was that cautionary or something? I was like, and then I think Alan Pope just replied, it's in alphabetical order.
Uh,
It
yeah.
just cracked me up. People are always looking for a little bit of drama somewhere.
Yeah. It's interesting that he mentioned the openSUSE build service though, because that doesn't get enough of a spotlight shone on it sometimes.
Talk me through the openSUSE build service. Is that what it's the acronym for?
Yeah, yeah. So I think basically the idea is that you'd write your app and then you upload it to OBS and say, I want you to build it against like Ubuntu 2004, Fedora 32, and I want you to package it for openSUSE as well.
Because I've
And
used it
it just
loads in
kind
the
of goes,
past.
yeah, it just kind of goes away and makes the package for you. Is my understanding of it, and it kind of automates that. And I think you can tie it into OpenQA testing, but I'm a little bit fuzzy on beyond that. But I know a long time ago there was an app that I needed
Right.
that did not have an Ubuntu release, but somebody had actually put it onto OBS, and it acts as an apt repository, and you can install it on Ubuntu through that.
Yeah, I've encountered that before, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think it gets enough little kind of acknowledgement sometimes for being able to do that.
So to flip it on its head, sort of thing. So the the original article from Datamation talking about the lack of diversity. Do you think there's
Mhm.
perhaps too much diversity in the different ways to package these applications?
Um, I think there's two separate problems, isn't there? There's um, the fact that there's not enough quote unquote diversity with distributions, and everything's kind of based upon to the nth degree.
I think that's only at the topper level though. So I think
Yeah.
personally, I think there is a lot of diversity in Linux distributions. There's loads of them out there, really. I think it's the main ones where there's a lack of diversity, I think.
Yeah, that's true. But then you have stacked on top of that the diversity in packaging.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then it's like it just makes it really difficult for developers to kind of appease everybody, I think, because there's a lot of apps that they'll either have a Snapcraft version or a Flatpak version and possibly a native version, but they won't have one or other of those things. You know, and because it kind of takes time for people to be putting them into these containers and things like that.
Yeah.
But there is a couple of apps that I've also seen where they just go absolutely bonkers and they do package it for basically everything.
Well, I think Caden Live does a really good job of packaging their app. They've got pretty much every basis covered. I'd say.
Yeah, and I think FreeTube does as well.
I've never used FreeTube actually.
Yeah, I think FreeTube has every package under the sun available to it.
There you go then. I still think that's a lot to ask for though, for like a single app developer like entity to have to think of all these various ways of packaging different things and sort of making the decision of what one to sort of bet for people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and naturally some of them are going to fit the workflow more than others, and it's kind of like
So we're gonna move on to this whole rolling release versus sort of a stable release kind of thing, if you like, because recently there has now been a Rolling Rhino. Yeah, that's it, Rolling Rhino. Yeah. Have you taken a look at Rolling Rhino at all?
I have not. I have to confess. All I know is like what you know, pretty much.
Yeah, so I installed it onto a spare disk just very temporarily and just had a little poke around, mainly because I just wanted to see how it actually worked. I think it's a commendable effort though. I think it would be quite good if they carried on with it. The process of sort of what would be the word, transforming Ubuntu into a rolling release is quite an easy thing for the end user to do. It was a couple of lines of commands and from Martin's WinPress's GitHub. But I think there were some sort of issues that do arise from using it compared to just the standard release. And I think one of them that was mentioned, because I watched his live stream the other day about it as well, was the sort of security fixes that get released into the LTS version first might delay a bit in the Devil channel.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how long I think it could be as little as a few hours, but I think that's something that needs to be considered.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, what do you want? Do you want newer, base packages and wait a little bit for your security updates, or do you want,
I think that'd be
security first?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'd probably err on the side of security first a little bit.
Yeah. I did actually find this out the other day. I didn't know this previously. Ubuntu does phased rollouts for their updates. So they don't release an update to everybody at exactly the same time. They release it at like 10% increments or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it does something I actually thought was quite clever. It uses the machine ID that it calculates as an MD5 sum.
Right. And
then it basically, like, the update server, I think, selects a 10% range of all the machine IDs that it knows, or the maximum range of MD5 sums that it can do, because there is only a limited number. And it selects like 10% of them to release the update to.
I never knew that.
And then it waits a bit and then sees if there's any bug reports or whatever that come in from that time period for those packages, and then if it doesn't in like the next, I can't remember what time frame it is, but after a while it releases it to another 10% of people, and then
So it's like a
sits there and waits.
staggered.
Yeah. And I thought that was actually quite interesting. I didn't know that they did that before.
What you just mentioned about whether there's like an issue with it, that is probably quite a good benefit of the fact that you haven't rolled out that issue to everyone all at once.
Yeah.
So that's quite cool.
And I suppose it takes a little bit of load off of the servers as well. It kind of load balances across the maximum time frame that it uses, which I think is something like 52 hours or something.
Right. So you're on rolling release because you're on Tumbleweed, right?
Yeah, I'm on Tumbleweed at the minute.
And do you prefer that sort of model?
So it kind of depends. I like both. I think both have their uses. And for me, because of some of the things that openSUSE does with Leap, I would probably be using Leap if I wasn't having issues with other things. But I do think that I linked you that article from Richard Brown, where he's like, he admits that he doesn't use Leap at all anymore. He uses exclusively Tumbleweed. And I kind of like, I get the logic about multiple smaller updates being better than fixed point releases jumping from like one thing to the next, but I kind of think both have their roles to play a little bit sometimes.
Well, I was toying with the idea of something I'm going to do in the future where I'd have like a machine that's always offline, apart from every now and then it might go online to do whatever. And I think
and see how well it updates.
Yeah, because I think for Arch in particular, obviously updates can come through quite thick and fast. And I think that would probably be the worst thing to have on the machine that is offline sort of sporadically and limited connection kind of thing. So I think, and I think actually the best distro, what I'm trying to do with this idea that I've got is find out which would be the best distribution for like 90% offline use of the time kind of thing. And
so kind of like embedded systems almost.
Sort of. Well, I was hoping there would be some articles about this, so I'd sort of done a few Google searches and stuff to see if people were sort of considering this or even talking about it. And I found some really old articles about distributions that were a thing back in the day that had this sort of idea in mind. But I think at the moment, because we're in such like a connected online world, there isn't really that thought about an offline distro that's going to have limited connectivity. So if I was ever in sort of a place where I wouldn't have a 24/7 internet, which these days is very unlikely, I'd want something that has everything included, that you didn't need to update regularly. And there's a few distros that I've thought about doing this sort of little test with, and one of them's actually Linux Mint. Because I remember the argument of Linux Mint when it first came out was the fact that it included the codecs and everything else in the installer at a time when Ubuntu didn't. Obviously now there's a checkbox and things like that in Ubuntu where you can do it all and stuff like that. But I'm wondering what openSUSE Leap would be like in that kind of use case.
I'd be interested to find out as well. I'm
gonna do it.
It would be okay.
Yeah. I just know that a rolling release would really not fare well in that kind of scenario.
And yet I've seen reports of people that have had Tumbleweed ISOs from like a year, 18 months ago, and they install it onto their system and do the zipper dupe to the latest version, and they're like, it worked absolutely beautifully.
Interesting. I'm definitely gonna. It's an experiment that I'm sort of working up towards doing. But I think it is going to be something where it's going to be a bit of a trial and error of different distributions. And I was reading. So there was another little article about this, and someone was like, "What's that distro called that I done a video of that people hated?" Hang on, Endless OS. No, Endless OS. So I did a video on Endless OS, right? And it was all well and good. People liked it, and then I think it was maybe a few months ago. Someone must have done a video on Endless OS or something, and then it recommended my older video on Endless OS, kind of the way YouTube works these days.
Yeah.
And like all of a sudden, there was like people going, "Oh, what? How dare you?" And I was like, "Well, I don't really like it." But some of the arguments I've taken into account, and I might do a follow-up video on Endless OS, to be fair. But I'm not a massive fan of Endless OS. But in the article I was reading, they said that Endless OS could have been something that might work in that kind of scenario, because it uses OS tree as well, I do believe.
Right. Okay.
Have you ever used it?
No, I haven't. I do. All I know is that it's Fedora based.
Is it?
I think. I thought it was Fedora based.
It might. It might well be. Yeah, it's been a while since I've actually taken a look at it, to be fair.
Yeah, it's either Fedora or Rail based.
It might be, because obviously it does use the OS tree and stuff as well. It's kind of in a similar way, as far as I'm aware, that Silverblue does.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else you want to say about the whole rolling release versus stable release kind of thing?
I think some of it kind of at times comes down to what hardware you've got, because there are, or at least I know there's been times where like new hardware has come out in sort of around this time of year, sort of July, August time, and people get it, and the kernel that's in the fixed releases and the graphics drivers that are in the fixed releases aren't up to date enough to cope with it. And even sort of the Ubuntu version that comes out in October may or may not have support for it. So it's kind of like, but by that time there may or may not be support in the kernel for it, and you kind of ended up on a rolling release just to get the thing working.
Yeah, I said stable release, obviously fixed release. I think there's the argument that people are sort of saying rolling releases don't necessarily not have to be unstable, and I don't know why the word stable is used in quite that way, because I don't find it to be like, completely unstable to use a rolling release, to be fair with you, and I think the terminology might need a bit of a tweak there, to be honest.
Yeah.
So you have had a little adventure, haven't you, recently?
Yeah, it was amazing.
It was amazing.
The best adventure of my entire life.
So shall we talk about your little Spyro the Dragon adventures?
Let's talk about it. So, being the amazing consumer that I am, I bought things on Steam in the summer sale. They had they had a bundle where they were shipping the Spyro Reignited trilogy and the Crash Bandicoot trilogy together for something like 30 quid, and I was like, that's actually really damn good, because you get basically 6 games for 30 quid. And I was like, it's on Steam, it'll run with Proton, like it'll be beautiful. So I downloaded Spyro first, because I was like, let's see what they've done to Spyro. Okay,
has it been remastered then?
Yeah, like all 3 games have all been remastered.
And when was because I've only ever I swear I played it on a PlayStation 1 or something.
Yeah. So Spyro is a PlayStation 1 game.
That's it.
As are the Crash Bandicoot games mainly.
Yeah.
And the teams that worked on them I have to say, have done an excellent job remastering them. Spyro particularly is like very like. I didn't actually play the first 2 Spyro games. I only played Spyro Year of the Dragon, which is the 3rd one.
Right.
But when I was playing it, I was like, I remember these. I remember these levels, playing them on my little PlayStation 1 when I was just a little babby.
I love the PlayStation 1.
Yeah, and it was really nice to see that they'd done such an excellent job remastering it, keeping kind of slight remixes of the audio, but kind of sticking to the same music and things like that.
How large were the Spyro downloads?
So the Spyro game, for all 3 in the trilogy, it was 37 gigabytes.
Really? Was PlayStation 1 games originally on CDs?
Yeah, or something in that kind of format.
So they've done quite a bit of remastering to it then for it to be that large.
Yeah. It's I think it's in Unreal Engine as well. But it runs pretty okay under Proton. except when it doesn't.
So you've had a change of distros, haven't you? And now you're back on
Yeah,
the one.
so I was having problems with the cutscenes in the games, and people said that, oh yeah, the glorious egg roll fork of Proton seems to fix that, and I
Right.
was kind of like, okay. And I tried it, and it fixed one cutscene, and then the next time it loaded a cutscene, it would just go to a black screen and basically crash on me, and I couldn't even get back to my desktop or anything. And I was like, okay, this is a bit weird. Maybe there's something that I missed. So I added a couple of like settings to it, didn't make any difference, and I thought, oh, this is odd.
Hmm.
Uh, so I had to. I think I reinstalled down to Leap 15.2 and tried that just to see if that made any difference. Didn't make any difference, and then I just could not get it to work, and I was like, oh, like I do not get what's happening here. I'll just, maybe it's the Flatpak version of Steam, maybe it's Proton, like I have no idea. So I thought, okay, well, I'll get Ubuntu, okay, because there's a native Steam app, there's a native, like they've got the same pretty much Mesa version as Tumbleweed. Like I'll try that and I'll see whether it's a ButterFS problem because I use ButterFS on my hard
Yeah.
drives. I'll put OpenZFS on it and see if that makes a difference. And then I was playing it and I was like, actually, this is like, it's actually working. All the cutscenes are playing. It hasn't crashed on me. It's all good. It's all good. And I was like, okay. And then I can't remember what it was, but I ended up sort of reinstalling Ubuntu. And when I went to go play the game again, it started crashing on me, and I was like, "Oh no!"
And
So
that's
whatever
vanilla
problem I was
Ubuntu,
having,
isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, "So whatever problem I was having is not exclusive to openSUSE or the Flatpak version. It's something else." So what I ended up doing was I went back to Leap 15.2 to see if I could try and get things working again. Completely deleted the game from my hard drives, like got rid of it out of my Steam library, then reinstalled, re-downloaded the entire game again, all 37 gigabytes of it, and then tried to play it, and it didn't like that. And I thought, okay, maybe it's just because the Mesa version is older in Leap 15.2.
Mm-hmm.
So I upgraded to Tumbleweed. I did an in-place upgrade. Went to try it again, and lo and behold, it comes back and it starts playing. So
Did you
I
narrow
was like,
down what the
okay,
problem was?
no.
Ah.
From as much as I can gather, it's specific to the Spyro trilogy, because the Crash Bandicoot trilogy doesn't suffer the same problem.
And was this using the glorious egg roll Proton DB
And
build?
this was using the Glorious Egg Roll version of Proton as well. But I obviously need a Mesa version above that which is in Leap, which I think is 19.3 point something.
Right.
So I need like Mesa 20 for it to work properly. And then I also need the Glorious Egg Roll version of Proton for Spyro, but I don't need it for Crash Bandicoot. So it's something about the Spyro trilogy with the cutscenes that it just doesn't like for whatever reason.
Huh. So I've just checked the original PS1 disk capacity because I was just curious.
Mm-hmm.
660 megabytes.
Wow.
So a lot has
But
been.
that was only for the one game.
Yeah. So was the original games more than one disc, or were they just all on one
Yeah,
disc?
because they had Spyro 1, they had like Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage, and then they had Spyro 3 Year of the Dragon. They were all three separate releases.
So how did you find your very very minor vacation on Ubuntu? Brief.
So obviously I yeeted Snap right out of there because I was like, no, I do not want this sitting there. But I kind of like the fact that I could just like go to the Steam website, download the deb, install the deb, it was working, go to the Discord website, download the deb, that's officially supported,
Yeah.
install it working, like all that kind of stuff.
Because traditionally you use the
And
Flatpak, don't you?
yeah, on openSUSE I use the Steam Flatpak.
Why is that?
Uh, I think because I didn't actually notice any performance difference between the Flatpak version and the native Steam app that's bundled
Right.
in the repos. And part of my logic was, well, I need to install Discord via Flatpak anyway because of there's some codec weirdness that goes on with the one that is packaged in the repos sometimes.
What, on
Which
openSUSE?
yeah,
It's
which the
fine with
Flatpak doesn't.
the Pac-Man repo. That's what I'm using at the moment.
Yeah, that was the thing. I was like, oh, I don't really want to have to add the Pac-Man repo just to
Right.
install Discord. So I thought, well, okay, I don't have this problem with the Flatpak version. And then there's other apps that I was installing via Flatpak anyway. So I thought, well, I might as well just put Steam in a Flatpak as well, because why not?
So getting back to
Um,
Ubuntu anyway.
yeah, so I kind of felt that it was to start with a little bit snappier, kind of a bit like smoother with some of the animations, but then actually in retrospect, now that I've gone back to openSUSE, I don't think it is actually quicker per se. I think it's just because the animation is there in GNOME, it kind of makes you feel like it's doing more.
So because on openSUSE you don't use GNOME though, do you?
I don't use GNOME on openSUSE. I use KDE.
So the GNOME animations, I actually kind of hate them. There's a GNOME
Really?
there's a GNOME extension called Impatience, I think it's called, which will basically just remove the speed them up if you like. I find them a bit slow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I use the Impatience extension to sort of make that. Then does make GNOME feel like lightning fast. To be fair.
Yeah. Yeah. But when I was actually testing it and having a good play about with some of the menus and stuff, I was like, actually, like I don't think it is snappier. I think it's just like this weird illusion that I had that it was.
So one thing I need to grill you about actually is I noticed you shared a screenshot of your Gnome Desktop in the Discord, linked in the description below by the way. You put your dock to the right.
Yeah.
That really unnerved me.
Did it?
Yeah, because I had to use because obviously when I done the K-Focus laptop review thing, I used a similar setup. Obviously it was on KDE.
Oh, and they had the KDE panel on the right,
and
didn't you?
it drove me insane.
Did it?
Yeah, because obviously I think we're used to the paradigm of well, I am used to top left because I always have a dock at the bottom, panel at the top. Sometimes I might feel a bit fruity and put my dock on the left, but the panel's always on the top where the application launcher is.
Yeah.
And it's something that I mentioned in my MX Linux video earlier because they have a one panel solution all to the left, but they kind of flip the order of things. So like your power button, like your log out, power exit buttons are all at the top.
Right, okay.
And then your application launcher's at the bottom. So whenever I see someone with a panel on the right, it drives me insane. Okay.
So normally on KDE and openSUSE, what I do is I kind of go for the sort of macOS-esque appearance, and I have like my latte dock at the bottom. I have the application menu up in the top left, and then I have my lock and shutdown buttons on the top right.
It's literally how I use it, yeah.
Yeah, my tray up there as well.
You have your tray as well? Oh, your system tray?
So system tray for
right,
like, the
okay.
app indicators and stuff.
I thought you meant like task list or something.
No. And what I did actually discover was the KDE kickoff menu. You can actually switch out for I think they call it the application dashboard.
Yep.
And that gives you the full screen kind of GNOME-esque
/ launchpad from Mac look.
Yeah. So I switched it to that, and that was the one thing that I used to use a lot on GNOME. So I thought, okay, well, I'll go for that then. But the reason for the dock on the right was somebody in another Discord server happened to say like they have their dock on the right as well, and I was like, why do you have your dock on the right? Like what's this about?
Insane?
And he he said something like, "Oh, like it's something to do with the fact that all content is like left aligned, or tends to be over to the left or the middle of the screen,
Mm-hmm.
and less stuff tends to be on the right hand side. So it's like he cannot I can't remember because he didn't link me anything or something. It was just he said like, oh, like I've looked into it, and he was like, the right hand side of the screen is like the least used side in terms of content.
Yeah, but it would take so much more sort of muscle memory training to then start using that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of struggled with it for a little bit, but that's because I was used to my dock being at the bottom.
What?
Um,
Why didn't you sort of replicate the same kind of layout on Gnome, by the way?
what you mean with the dock at the bottom and
Yeah,
panel
panel at the
thing
top, dock at the bottom, yeah.
Because I can't remember. Can you turn off panel mode on the Ubuntu dock?
So, if you download Deconf Editor,
Or deconf editor, yeah.
you can do a lot. Yeah, well, basically, Ubuntu, as far as I'm aware, Ubuntu dock is kind of just dash to dock anyway.
Yeah, it pretty much is.
So
but
if you,
I know that in dash to dock you can change it between panel mode and mode.
If you download Deconf Editor, you can do the exact same thing with Ubuntu dock. The last time I checked, even the settings title is still dash to dock. So if you open up Deconf Editor and go to the dash to dock settings, all of those changes will apply to the Ubuntu dock.
Ah.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know that, but I didn't want to start messing about with that in the middle of trying to make Spyro.
Well, you have more important things to do, didn't you?
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
But yeah, I did briefly put it down at the bottom, and there was just something about how they laid it out, and I was just like, you know.
So is that all you're playing at the moment then? Mixture of Spyro and Crash Bandicoot?
No, so I am playing Fallout 4 as well.
Oh, you mentioned that on the Discord. Yeah, I didn't realise. Yeah.
Yeah. So Fallout 4, interesting quirk. If I use it on Leap 15.2, I have to add a flag for Proton that I used to have to add when I was playing it on Ubuntu like 18 and 19 versions.
What's the flag?
But if it was Proton no async.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know what that does, but I had to add it because otherwise the game would just crash out.
Okay.
But when I play it on Tumbleweed, and I'm pretty sure it does it on Ubuntu as well, I don't need that flag.
That's very strange.
Yeah, so I don't know if they changed something in Mesa 20 that for some reason now makes it not need that flag, but I thought that was an interesting little note that I had.
Do you play any like multiplayer games online or anything?
I used to play Dota 2.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Isn't that a bit of a commitment?
Not very well, but I used to play it.
Right. I'll tell you what's annoyed me actually.
The only other game that I've played recently that's multiplayer is Team Fortress 2.
God, you're taking us all the way back.
I know, right?
So I always play CSGO. I've been playing Counter-Strike since like 1.5 or perhaps before, to be honest, when I was really young. Because my brother used to have like a makeshift internet cafe. Like we obviously didn't pay any, like charge anyone, but he had like back in the day he had so many computers that he's just sort of Frankenstein together, and then like he'd invite his friends over and they'd literally stay up to like 5, 6 in the morning just sessioning out some really old sketchy version of Counter-Strike. And then when I was really young, I remember like just always been like, let me come up and play. So I've been playing Counter-Strike since I was like in like little school, do you know what I mean, like really young school, and I just can't shake it. So do you know what I tried to play the other day, and it really wound me up actually that I couldn't get it to launch, and because I only bought it specifically to play it on that day as well. I went onto one of these sketchy CD key website things, right? And I was like, yes. I'm going to get this game and I'm going to redeem it in Steam, and that will work fine and stuff, but it won't launch. And so I've tried so many different sort of Proton builds and everything like that. The game is Mortal Kombat 11 because I was obsessed with just fighting games as well growing up. So I'm just going to play this, and I've tried and tried and tried, and I can't get it to launch on Linux, and I don't have any other operating systems to really use just to play games with anyway. So if anyone's managed to get that working on Linux, send me a message and tell me your secrets, because I really want to play it. But yeah, that's been my gaming at the moment. Do you know what? I haven't actually got time to play any games at the minute, like properly. Like I can't remember the last story-driven game, that takes a sort of substantial amount of hours to get through that I've played.
Yeah.
I think. Do you have any consoles?
I used to have consoles. I don't anymore.
So I've got a Switch at the moment that it's just gathering dust, and I need to. Yeah.
Because you just have. It's like too much time investment.
Yeah, like between working and doing everything else on the channel, things like that, I just don't have time to just sit down and play a game.
Yeah.
And I kind of.
Do you know what? Do you know what I think the solution to that is, Tyler? I think you should play Hedge Wars.
Oh really? I've never played Hedge Wars, so.
Hedge Wars is fantastic. Like, you have a match in like 5 minutes. It's crazy.
So what's the dynamic of Hedge Wars? What even is it?
You ever played Worms?
Oh, of course, yeah.
It's basically that, but it's free.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's Linux compatible. You can get it in Snap. You can get it in repositories. You can get it in Flatpak. They've got online play.
All right, I reckon me and you need to have a little tournament then, and then it can be a topic of the podcast.
I would love that if we could do it in the Discord server and have like a Hedge Wars championship.
Yeah, we can do that. We can do that. We'll have to. I'll have to make up a little league table or something and see you reign supreme.
Yeah.
All right, we can do that.
Me.
You reckon?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you've probably played it quite recently though, haven't you?
Yeah, relatively. Yeah.
Right. I'll tell you what I'm going to do tonight as well. I'm just going to download it and just hammer it for a good few hours until I'm at a decent level. Then I'm going to be like, tournament time. Okay, so moving on to another topic. Okay, that's a good one. So the whole paying for a distro thing.
Yeah.
So there's a few ways to sort of pay for a distro, I guess. I'm not going to really want to cover too much about the whole voluntary donations or whatever.
Yeah.
But actually paying for a distro, how do you sort of feel about that in the grand scheme of things?
So obviously, like, there's the enterprise ones, right? That you don't really pay for the distro. You pay for the support that comes with it, because legally they can't charge for the distro. And obviously for the enterprise ones, I'm kind of like, well, yeah, come on.
Well, yeah, exactly. So desktop wise in particular then, sort of how do you feel about that?
So the only two I can think of that you kind of quote unquote pay for, and the one that probably fits the way that you're kind of talking about it more is Zorin OS, but the Ultimate Edition or whatever it's called.
Have you ever used it?
I have never used it. Right. I've not tried Zorin OS Ultimate because I didn't want to try some of the features of the other editions that they've got. And I don't want to pay just to try it.
So one of the benefits of being someone who makes little YouTube videos about Linuxy distros is that I can just send people messages and they give me free stuff.
Yeah.
So I they were really sort of cordial and actually quite easy to deal with. Actually, I sent them an email just like send me a free link then, mate, and they did. So I was like, all right, cool. So yeah, you've got a sort of everything that I've done on the channel where I've worked or like used a product or something that requires monetary investment. It's always just been a total blag. So even like the K-Focus stuff, I just sent the guy a message on Twitter like, send me a review in it, boss. Let's get something moving, and it happens. So I think it's, I don't know if I could say it's worth the money or it isn't. To be fair. To be fair though, it's not like a one-time purchase and then that's it. If you lose your thing or whatever, it's gone. They'll send, every time there's an update, they will send you the newer version. You don't have to pay for it again, and you just re-download it and things like that. So
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. I don't know what the US. It's been a while since I've looked at it. I don't. Okay, yeah. So you get the different layouts included in that version, but
Yeah.
again, you can changing the layout is probably not worth a monetary exchange.
Hmm.
But the argument that I support for instead of against is the fact that it does, that money does help in future sort of projects and stuff that they are going to be working on.
Yeah, totally.
Um,
The only thing I did before was I did actually pay Elementary OS.
is it that you can? I thought it was just to pay what you want for the app center. Is there actually
Yeah,
a? You're
no.
right.
So the actual download link when you first go
Oh,
onto
of
their website,
course. Yeah.
yeah, it's got the suggested donation amount on it, but you can actually customize that, and you just put 0 in. It just lets you download it.
So how much did you
No,
give them a little donation for it then?
yeah, I think I gave them like 20 quid or something.
Big spender.
But then, obviously, because of the way the App Center is styled as well, there were actually apps that I was using at the time that I thought, yeah, you know what, actually, like, worth donating for these apps to give the developers something. So that was kind of some of the logic behind why I only gave them 20 quid rather than the suggested amount, because it was like, well, hang on, I've got to pay for these apps as well.
Yeah. So I think who else has recently started getting donations? Pop OS are doing the sort of a donation thing now as well, aren't they? I think for
Yeah. I did see an interesting thing about that. Somebody on Reddit, I can't remember where it was that I saw, but they were discussing Pop OS now taking donations, and they were basically saying it's because System 76's like largest growth at the minute or whatever is in Pop OS.
yes.
And people adopt
Well,
OS.
even just I do believe even if you just do a web search, the first thing that's going to come up will be Pop OS for System 76.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's not.
Oh.
Oh, hammer in the works. No, but yeah, what you're saying is I think most of the interest in System 76 does kind of spawn from Pop OS.
Yeah. So it kind of makes sense that they would be asking for donations, and that there is work that I think they're doing sort of in the background to kind of push things along a little bit, that is obviously going to need some money, because obviously they've got their own developers.
Mm-hmm.
So the developers need paying.
And what about so there are some really, I'm gonna say, rubbish distros that ask for donations, which is fine if someone's willing to donate to something.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure it's what would the word be? I don't think it's a very sound business model to really get into. I think.
I mean, I'll use an example here, and I'm sure it's probably applicable to a lot of distros that ask for donations, not just the like quality ones or the not so quality ones. There's a lot of people kind of do these things. There's a guy, so I'll use an example here. There's a guy I know that he makes a Discord bot, and obviously he has the Discord bot running on a VPS. Now, obviously, he has to pay for the VPS.
Yep.
Like, there is no such thing pretty much as a free VPS. And obviously, that costs him money that he is. And it isn't exactly cheap either, because it takes a lot. By the time your bot's in like 30 odd servers or something, it does actually take quite a bit of resources to keep running. So he asks for donations, right? And he can track in his bot how many unique users each it has under its scope.
Yep.
He actually posted the thing the other day, and it was actually a little bit depressing. So he said there's 1,000 to 2,000 unique users, of which 4 have donated.
Oh, that is harsh, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think there's kind of a little bit of that in Linux distro and Linux app worlds where people will just kind of use something for free because it's already available for free.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why, to some extent, I kind of like the elementary OS sort of model, because it's like it's pay what you want, and it's like if this app is quality and it's vetted and it goes into the like elementary OS cherry pick things and it works really well, I think it's worth the money.
Well, I think any work that's done in a sort of semi-professional sense is going to be worth the money. Someone's got to get paid somewhere.
Yeah, definitely. But sometimes I don't know if it's like just sort of a little like hobby project. Sometimes I'm kind of like, people asking for donations for this is a little bit like, eh.
Yeah. I'm not against paying for a well-designed application, or even to a certain extent, like a fully fledged distribution asking for money per se. I've not.
Yeah.
In fact, I've even donated to very fringe desktop distributions before as well. Even Alive. Do you know what Alive is? Alive.
It rings a bell, but I'm not sure what it is.
Uses the what's the desktop? Enlightenment Desktop. No.
No.
So I'd done a video on one of their betas a little while ago, and I was like, you need to pay for the beta, because it was like a sort of, there's a free version and there's a non-free version, and the beta you had to kind of pay for to get like a first look at it or whatever. And I was like, I want to do it on the channel to do a little video on it. Not that it's going to get loads of views or anything, because it didn't, but I was like, fine, I'll pay for it, but I'll also ask for a free version, right? So well, you got to anyway. So I sent the guys an email, but I was kind of like at the point where I didn't want to wait for a response, so I just pulled the trigger and just bought it. And to be fair, I don't think it was a very worthwhile investment at that point. But they did actually email me afterwards and say you can have it for free. But by that time, I'd already paid the donation, and I'm not gonna, be like, give me my donation back. You know what I mean? So, but
I want a refund on this free software.
Give me a refund, please, for my donation that I've. But like, and there's been a few times where I have paid for just little bits and pieces, and for projects that I think are worth the money because I'd like to see where they go in the future.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what I kind of think about. I don't know. So there's certain people that are really against it for whatever reason, and I think I'm not sure what I really think about that. To be fair, I don't think you should be against it. Just don't buy it.
Yeah.
It's kind of quite simple, isn't it?
Don't pay for it.
Well, it's not like there's a lack of free alternatives.
Yeah.
So the next topic I'm going to let you take the lead on, because I'm not really. I mean, we'll both probably just trip over it a little bit, but it's going to be the.
So it's Firefox, or rather Mozilla, adding Comcast as a trusted DNS over HTTPS provider to Firefox, and there was a lot of kind of like lol what moments. For people who don't know, DNS is how you get to websites. So when you type a word in, like, I don't know, I'm going to name drop them, but google.co.uk or whatever, it goes away to a server, says, hey, do you know where I can find this page? And it comes back and says, yeah, here you go, here's the address. A DNS historically has not been quote unquote secure. All of the transactions have kind of been done in plain text. They haven't been encrypted at all. Whereas now DNS over HTTPS is starting to do that. Firefox has had it as a feature since version 60 something.
Have no idea.
I don't know either. And when they initially rolled it out, they were using a service provided by Cloudflare, who are a content delivery / network proxy type company. And since then, they've added Next DNS as a provider and Comcast, who are one of the internet service providers in the United States. A little while ago, Mozilla turned on DNS over HTTPS by default for users in the United States.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now Comcast have jumped aboard the ship of being on the list of resolvers. And previously, things being how they are, I don't know the full situation in the United States, but a lot of people were kind of like, Comcast is not a great company. Why are Mozilla are basically selling out to Comcast for this? And I was kind of like, no. So they're providing a service, and they've realized that for certain things, it's probably in their customers' interests to have DNS over HTTPS service. And there is a blog post by some guy who works for Mozilla that kind of explains the logic behind why they have Comcast listed and what they're going, like what their vision is for DOH on Firefox. And a lot of it kind of went over my head because I was just sort of like, this is a little bit too technical for me. I'm not quite sure I understand what he's saying.
I mean, this is not my wheelhouse either, to be honest.
No, but the initial reactions were kind of, as I say, Mozilla are selling out to Comcast, or Comcast are going to abuse this and, harvest data from it and what have you. It was kind of like, are they though?
Yeah, I'm not too sure about that as well. And I know there's like people in the Discord sort of mentioning some sort of exodus from Firefox and talking about alternative browsers or whatever.
Yeah,
I'm not too sure about that.
No, and it does actually say that in the article you can override the Comcast settings anyway with whatever you want.
Right, okay, I didn't see that part.
So you can set Cloudflare as your DOH provider. You could set NextDNS as your DOH provider. There's a couple of other services out there, one of which I used before, that you could just put it in and it works. It's kind of like you could just set it to whatever you want. But what got me was at the time when DOH first came out, there were some people, and I can't remember specifics because it was a while ago now and it happens, but there were a lot of people that were kind of saying the same sort of things about Cloudflare providing the service.
Right, okay.
And I was kind of like, so is this just a kind of knee-jerk reaction of, oh no, corporation providing free service, what could possibly go wrong?
I think it is the knee-jerk reaction, that's all it is, to be fair.
Yeah, and maybe it's just that I don't know enough about the situation or what Comcast's tendencies as a company.
Well, obviously have no sort of interaction with any Comcast whatever stuff because I'm UK or whatever, but I've not heard good stuff about them as a an overall entity or whatever. But
yeah,
I'm not.
But you don't hear good stuff generally about most of the US ISPs, or indeed some of the ones that exist in the UK. It's just that
no,
it's just, I don't know. It just seems a bit like again, people kicking off for the sake of kicking off rather than. Yeah.
If anyone knows a bit more about this, do sort of chuck a comment and tell us how stupid we might be being to not be seeing the big sort of red herring here or something. But
maybe we're totally missing the point because
I mean, maybe I'm a Comcast shill and I'm getting that corporate money.
Maybe you actually work for Sky, who are owned by Comcast.
Yeah, maybe I hate Sky, man. It's the Sky own Comcast then?
No, Comcast owns Sky.
Ah, there we go. Didn't you mention as well they might own Virgin Media, or there's some interaction there or something?
No. So I thought Comcast owned Virgin Media, and they don't. They own Sky,
Right.
and that
Okay.
was why I got confused. But I don't think there's any other funny shenanigans going on.
So, do you think this is going to impact Firefox's numbers, like as you know, of active users at all, or?
To be honest, temporarily yes. Long term, probably not.
I think I have seen a little bit online about the whole sort of knee-jerk reaction of people going, well, I'm going to move to this, I'm going to move to that. So I think the short term it might suffer a little bit.
Yeah, that's what I mean. In the short term, there'll be people that'll leave, but then I think there'll always be a proportion of people that will come back anyway.
So what's
And
the current market share? Hold on, let me have a look.
Firefox is something like 13% ish,
Is
give or
it?
take. I thought it was.
We've got the stats counter, global stats here. Hold on, we have
Yes, the global stats counter.
exactly. Could you get more reputable?
Well-known organisation.
Exactly, I know these guys. So Chrome is at 65.47. Safari is actually, I don't know how recent these are actually. What the hell? Hold on. Apparently they came to be quite recent as of June 2020. Firefox is at 4.25% according to this.
Oh, okay.
UC browser. What's UC browser?
It's some Android browsery type thing. Yeah.
I'll tell you what though, the fact that Samsung Internet is on there shows you the kind of dominance of mobile sort of browsing these days, because that's the default web browser that you get on sort of most Samsung Galaxy phones.
Yeah.
As far as
Well,
I'm aware, they don't have a desktop client, and they're still managing to get into the sort of global rankings here.
Yeah. That's the power of things being the default, isn't it?
Well, exactly. I mean, I've got a Samsung Galaxy phone and I've disabled the Samsung browser. But from what I can hear, functionality-wise, it's okay, but I just wouldn't use it.
Yeah. But it's like, why was Internet Explorer the dominant web browser worldwide for years?
Default.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got just the desktop market share here. I think that one was sharing mobile stuff. So Chrome again is still way ahead at 69.42.
Yeah.
Safari is second, but again, that's just going to be purely because it's the default browser on Macs and stuff.
Yeah.
Firefox is third again, at 8.48. And that's of June. Okay. So I'll keep an eye on it. I can't see it dramatically dropping though, to be honest with you.
No, I don't know that it's going to lose an awful lot of people from it.
I'm slightly concerned that 2.8% of people out there are still using Internet Explorer though.
Oh, that's from worldwide though. That'll be from, God knows where.
And there's a legacy Edge at 3.45%. Why is it legacy? Oh, because they've made a newer one based on Chromium, haven't they?
Oh, yeah.
Is that coming to Linux?
It's supposed to be, but I don't know, man.
I think I saw something about that.
Could be a while. I mean, look how long it kind of took them to get Windows or Microsoft Defender ATP to Linux, because that came out recently, but they announced that like last year or something.
Were they not quite quick with Teams, Microsoft Teams?
Yeah, I think they were, but then Microsoft makes most of its money from Office.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of the way that they're trying to position themselves in the market with like WSL and products like that is towards sort of more hybrid sysadmin sort of things. So I think that's probably why they brought it out pretty quickly. Plus, from my understanding, it's an Electron app anyway.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so it's kind of like Slack, it's an Electron app. It'll pretty much, a little bit tweaky, and it'll
have you used WSL much?
No, I last touched it when it was still version 1.
Yeah, I tried it out the other day.
Then I switched to Linux full time anyway, because I was like, what is the point when I could just use Linux?
Well, exactly. I think I tried it out the other day just because I was curious, and my laptop has a free Windows license just attached to the hardware. So every now and then I'll so every now and then I'll have a Windows installed on there just because I've been curious, and I've had a look at it the other day. It's interesting. I'm not sure I'm sure it fills a niche for people like developers or whatever that need it. I again though, at that point just use Linux.
Yeah, or like at least dual boot or something.
I'm kind of against dual booting at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Windows and Linux anyway. I have about 20 million boots of all different Linux distros on my computer.
Yeah. So.
At one point, this computer that we're running had Mac OS, Linux, and a Windows all on the same one. It was like a tri-boot kind of deal, but that was just too much.
Trifecta.
Yeah, the Holy Trinity. It was too much to maintain, though, to be fair.
The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Which is which in that dynamic?
I would probably say Windows is the Father.
Right.
Followed by the Son being MacOS, followed by the Holy Spirit being Tux, of course.
Yeah, I mean, maybe.
The Church of Emacs, you know.
God, I haven't looked. Yeah, I remember that whole thing, the Church of Emacs. Yeah. Okay. So is there anything else you want to mention before we wrap it up?
No, I think that pretty much wraps up what we wanted to talk about in this episode.
Lovely. So before we go, this is also on Spotify now, and I've done a good job of trying to anything that we've been talking about on the screen sort of make audible, so the Spotify listeners can sort of hear it in just the audio form. I'm looking at different sort of providers, if you like, or somewhere to upload it to get a decent RSS feed. I've tried out a couple and I've given an RSS link to a few people just to see how it all works and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm working on getting that done, and people also want it on the Apple Podcasts apparently, so I'm gonna get it on there as well, I guess. I'm really excited about that part.
Yes, I can tell there's positive enthusiasm coming.
Yeah. So the audio version of this that's on Spotify at the moment will coincide with this upload, so they should be online at roughly the same time, so you can choose which version you'd rather view. And also it's on Library just as a sync anyway, so it'll always be on Library maybe an hour or two after the YouTube release.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's good.
Thanks everyone. That was episode 2 of the Tyler's Techcast. We'll try and phase out the average. I might even retroactively just go and change the title of the last episode.
Oh, yeah, and republish.
I won't need to republish it. I'll just
just
edit it in the YouTube studio or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, lovely. Right, take it easy, man.
See you later.
Bye-bye.